March 15, 1918. Hoboken Terminal, New Jersey. The whistle screams across the Hudson River at 0547 hours. Sergeant William Drayton of the 42nd Infantry Division can barely hear it over the thunder of boots on wooden planks. 3,000 men moving in columns of four, their Springfield rifles slung, their packs laden with 60 pounds of gear. The air tastes like coal smoke and salt water. Behind him, another troop train is already disgorging its human cargo onto Platform 7. Behind that, 3 more wait on the tracks, stretching back toward the marshalling yards like iron serpents. Drayton doesn't know it yet, but he's part of the largest logistical operation in American history. Across the terminal, Major Frank Morrison of the Transportation Corps stands on an observation deck with a clipboard, watching the controlled chaos below. Every minute, another 150 soldiers flow from train to pier. Every hour, another regiment. In his pocket is a schedule, typed, stamped, classified, that account for every rail car, every regiment, every ship berthed at the piers. The margin for error is measured in minutes, not hours, because the math is unforgiving. 2 million soldiers, maybe more. They must cross an ocean 3,000 miles wide, where German U-boats hunt in wolf packs. They must arrive in France fed, equipped, and ready to fight. And they must do it before the war is lost. The French army is bleeding out at Verdun. The British are exhausted at Ypres. Russia has collapsed. If American boots don't reach European soil in overwhelming numbers, and soon, the Central Powers will win. Morrison checks his watch. The SS Leviathan is scheduled to depart at 1,400 hours, with 14,416 men aboard. That's one ship. Today, 6 more will sail from New York, 3 from Philadelphia, 2 from Norfolk. Tomorrow, the cycle repeats. Every day. For months. The railroad system that brought Sergeant Drayton here started moving him 5 days ago from Camp Mills on Long Island. But the real journey began 18 months earlier, in quiet offices in Washington, where planners faced an impossible question. How do you move a nation to war? The answer began with a railroad map. December 1916. War Department, Washington, D.C. Lieutenant Colonel Charles G. Dawes spreads a map of the United States across a mahogany table. Red lines trace every major rail corridor from coast to coast. The Pennsylvania Railroad, the Baltimore and Ohio, the Southern Pacific, the Great Northern. 24 different companies. 154,000 miles of track. No central authority. No unified command. Gentlemen, Dawes says to the assembled railroad executives, we need to move 1 million men in 6 months. The room goes silent. In peacetime, the railroads compete. They guard their routes, their schedules, their rolling stock like corporate secrets. But Dawes isn't asking. President Wilson has already signed the Army Appropriations Act. The government now has the authority to commandeer every locomotive, every boxcar, every mile of track in America. What follows is a transformation. By March 1917, the Railroad War Board is operational. Daniel Willard, president of the B&O Railroad, becomes its director. His first order, standardize everything. Equipment specifications, loading procedures, movement schedules. A private from Texas boarding a train at Camp Travis must arrive at Hoboken at exactly the same time as a private from Michigan leaving Camp Custer. Their units must merge seamlessly on the pier. The railroads deliver. Maintenance facilities in Chicago retool to repair military equipment. Freight yards in Kansas City become staging depots for ammunition. In Norfolk, the C&O Railway extends spur lines directly onto the docks so that a soldier stepping off a train is 20 yards from a gangplank. Then come the factories. Steel mills in Pittsburgh double their output. Bethlehem Steel in Pennsylvania forges hull plates for transport ships around the clock, 3 shifts, 7 days a week. In Detroit, automobile plants halt civilian production and start building truck chassis for the Army. Every locomotive, every rail car, every crate of supplies is tracked on punch cards by women working adding machines in vast administrative buildings. This is industrialized war, and it runs on schedules. May 1918. Camp Upton, Long Island. Private James O'Connell, receives his movement order on a Tuesday. Report to rail siding B7 Friday 0600 hours. Bring full field kit. His regiment, the 77th Division, numbers 27,000 men. The camp adjutant has calculated it will take 42 troop trains to move them all. O'Connell's train departs on schedule. The locomotive pulls 60 cars, 40 troop sleepers, 15 boxcars of equipment, 5 flat cars carrying artillery pieces. Speed, 35 miles per hour. Distance to Hoboken, 47 miles. Travel time, 90 minutes. At every junction, railway dispatchers have cleared the main line. Civilian traffic waits on sidings. The war moves first. The trains arrive like clockwork. June 12, 1918. Hoboken embarkation point. Private O'Connell steps onto Pier 4 at 0743 hours, exactly 17 minutes ahead of schedule. Around him, the 77th Division flows from rail cars to dockside in a choreographed flood. Sergeants bark orders. Company commanders check rosters against typed manifests. Medical officers scan faces for signs of influenza. One sick soldier can infect 1,000 in a ship's hold. The pier itself is a city of organized motion. Longshoremen, civilian workers now wearing War Department armbands, operate steam cranes that swing cargo nets loaded with footlockers, ammunition crates, field kitchens. A net rises every 90 seconds. Each contains 2 tons of material. Above, on the deck of the troop ship USS America, sailors guide the loads into hatches leading to the holds below. O'Connell joins a queue. For 1,000 men ahead of him, the line moves at the rate of 1 soldier every 8 seconds up the gangway. Do the math. 8 hours to load a full division. But Hoboken is just one port. Same day, Newport News, Virginia. The USS Mount Vernon takes on the 80th Division. Farm boys from Virginia and Tennessee. Coal miners from West Virginia. Different port. Same system. Rail lines feed directly to Pier 7. The Atlantic Coastline Railway has run 17 trains in the past 24 hours. Each offloads, empties, and returns the interior for the next load. At the Port Operations Office, a wall-sized board tracks every ship in the embarkation system. Magnetic markers show vessel names, departure dates, troop capacity, destination ports in France. A captain moves a marker for the Mount Vernon from loading to ready. The convoy system is already waiting. Since unrestricted submarine warfare began in February 1917, German U-boats have sent 2,439 Allied ships to the bottom of the Atlantic. The answer is numbers and speed. American transports cross in massive convoys, 30, 40, sometimes 50 ships surrounded by destroyers. The U-boats can't hunt what moves too fast and defends too heavily. June 14, 1918, 280 miles east of New York. O'Connell stands on the deck of the USS America as the convoy forms up. He counts 32 ships, former passenger liners, cargo freighters converted to troop carriers, 3 destroyers cutting white wakes through gray water. The Leviathan is out there somewhere, the largest ship in the convoy, carrying 14,000 men in her holds. Below decks, conditions are brutal. Bunks stacked 4 high in compartments designed for a third of the men now crammed inside. The air thick with sweat, seasickness, the smell of oil and steam from the engines. Meals are served in shifts, beans, hardtack, coffee. 20 minutes to eat. Then the next shift shuffles in. But the ships are fast. 18 knots. At that speed, a U-boat can't catch them. The crossing takes 8 days. 8 days during which the railroad system back home continues without pause. Another 40 troop trains depart for Hoboken. Another 60 for Newport News. Another 30 for Philadelphia. The ports never stop. The ships never stop. In May 1918 alone, 244,345 American soldiers land in France. In June, 278,664. In July, the number will exceed 300,000. The German High Command watches these numbers with growing alarm. They gambled that U-boats would strangle the American buildup. Instead, the Atlantic has become a highway. Every week, another division. Every month, another 100,000 rifles pointed at the Western Front. The convoys don't sail alone. June 22, 1918. 450 miles west of Brest, France. Commander Richard Lee stands on the bridge of the destroyer USS Fanning, scanning the horizon through binoculars. Dawn breaks cold and gray over the Atlantic. Around him, the convoy spreads across 10 square miles of ocean. Troopships in the center, destroyers prowling the perimeter like sheepdogs circling a flock. His orders are simple. Keep the transports alive. The Fanning carries depth charges racked on her stern, 4-inch guns mounted fore and aft, and a crew trained to hunt submarines. Every 12 hours, the destroyers change position, rotating through sectors in a pattern designed to prevent U-boats from identifying gaps in the screen. It's working. Mostly. Since April, only 3 troopships have been torpedoed. The Moldavia, the Tuscania, the President Lincoln. Combined casualties, 210 American soldiers lost. Tragic. But against 1.2 million men transported, the numbers tell a different story. The U-boats are losing. Below deck on a USS America, O'Connell doesn't know any of this. He knows only the rhythm of the ship. The throb of engines, the roll of swells, the metallic taste of recycled air. He sleeps in shifts, stands in lines for food, plays cards with men from Brooklyn and Alabama and Oregon. On the 6th day, the convoy reaches a danger zone. June 24, 1918. 180 miles from the French coast. Lee received the signal at 1,420 hours. Submarine contact, bearing 270 degrees, range 3,000 yards. The Fanning heels hard to port, her engine screaming to flank speed. Sailors sprint to battle stations. The submarine has been spotted by a lookout on the USS Cummings, a periscope wake cutting through the gray water. Depth charges roll off the stern. They sink trailing bubbles, set to detonate at 150 feet. The ocean erupts in white columns of spray. The shock waves thump through the America's hull. O'Connell and 3,000 other soldiers feel it. A distant, muffled boom that rattles their bones. The periscope disappears. Lee doesn't wait to confirm the kill. The convoy maintains course and speed. The mission isn't to hunt U-boats. It's to deliver soldiers. Every minute wasted is a minute the Germans have to reposition. By 1800 hours, the French coast is visible, a dark smudge on the horizon. June 26, 1918. Port-au-Brest, France. The USS America eases into harbor. O'Connell stands on deck with his company, watching the dock slide closer. French civilians wave from the quays. American military police wait in formation. Behind them, more trains, French locomotives this time, with European-gauge boxcars ready to carry the 77th Division east of the front. The gangways drop at 0920 hours. O'Connell walks down onto French soil. His boots hit cobblestone. The air smells like diesel and bread and sea salt. Somewhere in the distance, artillery rumbles, a low, constant thunder that never quite stops. A sergeant directs his company toward a marshalling yard. Move it, ladies. War's not going to wait. But the war has already changed. In Washington, the Transportation Corps tallies the numbers. June 1918, 278,664 soldiers delivered. Total since April 1917, 1,458,000. The projection for December, over 2 million. Germany's spring offensive, launched in March with the goal of winning before American numbers became overwhelming, has stalled. At Belleauwood, U.S. Marines stopped the German advance cold. At Châteauguay, American infantry holds the line on the Marne. The railroad system that began in planning rooms and freight yards has delivered an army. The numbers become unstoppable. August 1918. American Expeditionary Forces Headquarters, Chaumont, France. General John J. Pershing stands before a map of the Western Front, watching his staff update unit positions with colored pins. Each pin represents a division. 6 months ago, there were 4 American divisions in France. Today, there are 29. By November, there will be 42. 1.2 million American soldiers now stand on French soil. Another 800,000 are in the pipeline. on trains rolling toward embarkation ports, on ships crossing the Atlantic, in camps awaiting movement orders. The German General Staff knows what this means. In Berlin, Field Marshal Paul von Hindenburg reviews intelligence reports with growing desperation. The Americans are arriving faster than German casualties can be replaced. Every week, another 50,000 fresh troops disembark at Brest, Saint-Nazaire, Bordeaux. They bring new rifles, new artillery, new resolve. Meanwhile, Germany's reserves are exhausted, her allies collapsing, her people starving under the British blockade. The railroad system has done more than move men. It has shifted the balance of industrial power across an ocean. September 12, 1918. St. Mihiel Salient, France. Private O'Connell crouches in a trench, rain dripping from his helmet. Around him, the 77th Division waits for the barrage to lift. At 0500 hours, American artillery, 3,000 guns strong, begins the largest offensive ever commanded by U.S. forces. 16 divisions, 550,000 men. The objective: reduce the German salient that has threatened Allied lines since 1914. The attack succeeds in 4 days. O'Connell advances through mud and wire, past shattered German bunkers, past columns of prisoners marching west with their hands raised. The speed of the American assault shocks even Allied commanders. These aren't the green troops of 1917. These are soldiers who arrive by the hundreds of thousands, trained and equipped by an industrial machine that never stopped running. November 11th, 1918. Hoboken Terminal, New Jersey. The whistles blow at 1,100 hours, not for departing trains, but for arriving peace. Major Morrison stands on the same observation deck, where he watched the embarkation begin. The terminal is quieter now. The last troopship sailed 3 weeks ago. The convoys have delivered 2,086,000 American soldiers to Europe in 19 months. Not one troopship was lost with troops aboard during the final 6 months of the war. The statistics are staggering. The railroads move 7.2 million soldiers between camps and ports, an average of 380,000 men per month. They transported 17 million tons of supplies, equipment, and ammunition. They coordinated 43,000 troop trains without a single major scheduling failure. The ports processed one troopship every 8 hours at peak efficiency. And it worked. Germany requested armistice on November 8, 1918. The war ended 3 days later. Among the reasons cited by German military leaders, the impossibility of matching American industrial mobilization. Morrison folds his clipboard. The piers below are empty now except for longshoremen securing cargo for the return journey. Wounded soldiers going home. Equipment being demobilized. The machinery of war slowly grinding to a halt. But the legacy remains. The system that moved 2 million men across the Atlantic proved what coordinated logistics could achieve. It demonstrated that American industry could pivot from peace to war with devastating speed. It established protocols for military transportation that would be refined, expanded, and used again when another generation sailed to Europe 23 years later. Private O'Connell survives the war. He returns to Brooklyn on a troopship in February 1919, walks down the same Hoboken pier where his journey began. The trains still run. The factories still hum. But the impossible task is complete. One railroad system. 1 year. 2 million soldiers. And a war won not just with bullets and courage, but with schedules, steel rails, and the relentless precision of American logistics.